Hey, welcome to my channel. My name's Christina Kent and I'm an oil painter based out of San Francisco. As a painter, I oftentimes get questions from people who are just starting out with painting saying that, oh, I don't feel like I'm very good, I'm struggling a lot, I'm not making good paintings. Should I keep going or should I just give it up? And the fact of the matter is, painting is really hard. It's a skill that you need to develop over time. It takes a lot of work. And in the end, most of us are probably not going to be like Picasso or Van Gogh. So that raises the question, why paint at all? So in this video, I'm going to share my answer to that question. I'm going to go over the main reasons why I paint. I'll start with the more mundane reasons, and then I'll move to the deeper reasons in the end. The first reason why I think you should paint is for the joy of building a skill. Painting is just like any other skill. It can be learned and it's learned over time. And it's really, really hard, but the other good thing is that you can keep getting better and better over time. So it's not like you're playing a video game or something and then you finish everything, you beat all the bosses, and the game is over, and you have to find a whole new game to play. With painting, there's always more that you can do. There's always a step further that you can take the work. There's always more skills you can learn, more ways that you can learn to see your work, new territories that you can explore in your art. And so I think that's what makes it something really fun to pursue over time, because as you get better, the challenges just get harder and you can keep going and keep going. And this, I think, is something that's helpful to keep in mind when you're starting out, because when you're starting out, you're not going to get the joy of creating a really beautiful work of art right off the bat. Your first work is really probably going to fall short of your expectations, and it can be really, really frustrating. But I think that if we keep in mind that we are building this skill and we keep focusing on our growth over time, then we can actually get a lot of joy and satisfaction from this process. So here, I'm not talking about the joy that you feel when you create a beautiful work of art. I'm talking about the joy that you feel when you see that your work is better today than it was yesterday. And painting offers you that route to improve yourself bit by bit each day. With each work of art that I do, I don't always do great paintings one after another, but with each painting I do, I try to push myself in a new way where I can grow a little bit, where I can learn a little bit. And it's seeing that progression over time that really brings me joy. It's not about the quality of my final paintings. It's really about how I can see myself changing and growing over time. And I think that is just so satisfying. So if you are just starting out and you're feeling really uncomfortable because your work is not where you want it to be, try instead to focus on this incremental progress that you're making and how you're getting better and better each day. That is where you're going to find your joy, and that's where you're going to find the motivation to keep going. My second reason for why you should paint is to experience creative flow. And this is probably not going to happen right off the bat when you get started. I think it tends to happen more once you've already built up some skills and you start to feel some sense of mastery. So it may take some time to get to this stage, but once you do, you can start working on a painting and you can start getting into this creative flow where you even kind of just lose track of all sense of time and space, and you're just kind of in this creative bliss. It almost feels like the painting is actually painting itself and you're just kind of along for the ride. And when those moments happen, they are just like, they are incomparable. It's like one of the best feelings ever. It's pure creative bliss. And I feel like these moments of flow are so important to the artistic process because there's something that is not conditional and that no one can take away from you. So maybe the painting that I make doesn't sell, or maybe it doesn't get into a museum or something like that. But no one can take away from me the joy that I felt while I was making it and the connection that I had in the painting process. And so it's really like, I find that these moments of creative flow, they're big boosts to my motivation and enthusiasm during the creative journey, because the creative journey can be really hard. It can be tiring and difficult, and you have days when you're not feeling motivated and you have days where you're uninspired. And these moments of creative flow really help give me a boost and just bring me so much joy along this path. So even if the outcome of my painting isn't exactly where I want it to be, at least I have the joy of that moment, of that creative process. And I think finding activities that can help bring us this state of flow is just really important for our mind and for our spirit. I think so many times we can spend our time working on things that are really hard and struggling a lot. And when we can get into a flow, it just is like kind of like a breath of fresh air that I think that really adds just joy and meaning to our lives. And you can, of course, experience creative flow with a lot of different practices, but I think that painting is one really good way to do that. The other great thing about painting when it comes to mastering a skill is that sure, you can choose a lot of different skills to master, but I think painting is a really good one because it has very low barriers to entry. Like, it's very easy. You can just buy a cheap set of paints and a small sketchbook and some brushes, and you're good to go. You don't need any fancy equipment. You don't need any important or special space to do it in. You can do it right at home. And the fact that it's like so accessible, I think makes it a really good practice to have. Plus, through platforms like YouTube or art books that you can get at your library, it's so easy to learn more about painting. And there's just a huge wealth of information that you can study for free online. Of course, you can also pay more for classes too, but even just the free resources that are available, like here on YouTube for painting, there's so much of it that even if you get to a point in your practice where you feel like you've reached some level of mastery and maybe your skill is plateauing, you can always search out some new techniques and new videos that will inspire you to push your work even further. The third reason for why you should paint is to learn more about yourself. I think painting is a great tool for introspection. Painting is extremely personal. From the materials that we use to the subject matter we choose to present, it really reflects who we are as people and what's important to us. And I think our society puts a lot of stress on the verbal part of our minds, on the part of us that's able to express ourselves and speak things into words. But I also think that there is this subconscious, nonverbal part of the mind that also has a personality and is part of who we are, but it just can't express itself in the same way. Like, have you ever looked at a work of art and you really liked it, but you just can't explain why? I think this is our nonverbal part expressing itself. We can be drawn to things and not really know why, and I like to explore. I'm fascinated by exploring what that means. When we're painting, we're not working in the realm of words, we're working in the realm of images, which connects with a completely different part of our brain. And I think the specific images that we're drawn to, the art that we're attracted to, can really reveal a lot about who we are. There have been many times when I've been attracted to an image or I've seen something in the world and I've been like, wow, I really want to paint that, but I can't explain why. I couldn't say what was really drawing me to that image. For example, I saw my cutting board in my kitchen one day and I just thought it was so beautiful the way that it was. Like, I couldn't explain what was really compelling about it, but I decided to take a picture of it and then I painted it later. And as I was painting it, I was thinking about what really drew me to that image. And gradually I started to kind of realize what moments in the image were really inspiring to me and really compelling. But that's not something that I would have realized had I not spent that time looking and doing the painting. And for me, that's often how inspiration comes. It doesn't exactly always make sense. And sometimes the ideas that I get, I think I'm really skeptical that they'll be good or important or interesting paintings in any way. But instead of just ignoring those ideas, I choose to pursue them. And in pursuing them, I think more about why is this imagery attractive to me? Why am I drawn to painting this particular subject matter? What is it about this scene that feels really compelling and that really resonates with who I am? And the more you do this over time, the more you get past the level of where you're just focusing on skill, where you can really move into investigating subject matter. I think that's when you really start to learn more about yourself and your own inner voice. This brings me to the fourth reason why I think it's important to paint, and that's to express yourself. I think so much of our lives are focused on just surviving, doing the work that we need to do to pay the bills, to put food on the table, to pay our rent. But if you're just focused on surviving, that's a pretty mundane and depressing existence. I think as humans, it's important that we create things. It's important that we create things not just to serve some utilitarian purpose, but just for the sake of it, just because we can. And in the great span of human history, we're all just really small blips. But I think that while we're here, in the short time we have, we can express ourselves and what it's like to see the world as us. And in this way, we can also connect more with others, because maybe someone else sees the world similarly to how we see it. Each of us has our own way of seeing the world, and I think it's so beautiful when we can express it and share it with others. Through your painting, you can communicate what it's like experiencing the world as a person here and now. And I think that's a beautiful thing. My last reason for why you should paint, and the one that for me is the most important, is that it can completely change the way you see the world. Before I started painting professionally, I was completely focused on studying economics, and I was seeing the world in a purely utilitarian framework. I was so focused on getting things done and achieving my goals that I was completely ignoring all of the beauty in the world around me. Sure, occasionally I would stop to go to the mountains and I'd appreciate a beautiful landscape, or I'd go to the beach and watch the ocean. But most of my daily life, to me, I just thought was pretty boring and mundane. If you'd asked me if there was anything worth painting, I would have told you definitely not. But when I picked up painting again after a long break, and particularly when I started painting from life, my views on this completely changed. For example, I used to think that still life painting was really boring, but when I actually sat down to paint a still life and I looked at the colors that were on the fruits and how the different colors reflected off of each other and how the different shapes of the objects interacted with each other, I realized that there was so much more to see than what I'd initially imagined. And that's the thing, our brains are amazing prediction machines, and our brains are kind of lazy, I think. We take a lot of shortcuts. So sometimes, especially if we're really familiar with a place, we don't really see it for what it is, but we more so see what we're actually expecting to see. And painting is able to break past this way of seeing. By sitting down and really paying attention to what's in front of our eyes, suddenly we become aware of all of these nuances and all of this beauty that was right there in front of us this whole time. And this doesn't just happen when you're painting. This also happens in daily life. You'll start walking down the street and seeing paintings everywhere. Rather than seeing the familiar houses and street corners, you'll start to see a whole symphony of colors and shapes and forms all coming together to create beautiful images. You'll realize that the whole world around you is a beautiful work of art, and that is my favorite reason for painting. So to recap, why should we paint? First, to master a skill. Second, to experience creative flow. Third, to learn more about yourself. Fourth, to express yourself. And fifth, to see the world with new eyes. Okay, now it's your turn. Tell me your reasons for painting in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you found this video helpful. And as a note, this video isn't sponsored by anyone, but if you want to support me, you can purchase my paintings on my website or support me on Patreon, or you can share this video with a friend. It really helps my channel. And a big thank you to all my supporters on Patreon. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.